Hey, all you beautiful people out there. This is the Edgy Entrepreneur Podcast. We are your hosts, Daniel Tribby.
And I am Oriana Guevara. And in this episode, we're talking about step 1 in understanding self-mastery.
Time to mental up. Let's go. Welcome to the Edgy Entrepreneur Podcast, where we believe that if you are not working on your personal mastery, you are leaving 80% of your business potential on the table. We are your hosts. I am Daniel Tribby.
And I am Coach Oriana Guevara.
Hi, Oriana.
Hi, Daniel Tribby.
What are we doing today? What are we talking about?
We're talking about the journey of self-mastery and continuous self-improvement, and how it just feels like shit sometimes.
Doesn't it?
It does.
Doesn't it? Is that because we tend to be too hard on ourselves at times?
I think there's a lot of reasons for why it feels bad, but we're going to talk about phase 1, step 1.
Let's do that.
So the journey towards self-improvement.
Right. So understanding self-mastery, right?
Yes.
And then what does that first step look like is the discussion of today's episode. So if we are going to talk about self-mastery and what that entails, what actually is self-mastery? Because some people are probably listening going, oh, self-mastery, I can master myself, but what does it actually mean to master oneself? Yeah,
to me, self-mastery is being consistently in the work. I think when you're at the place where you realize that you need to start engaging in self-work, I think the experience that most people have is you feel called to your self-work, right? You feel called into needing to do something to get to the next level. So that process of making that realization within yourself and then actually taking action, whatever that looks like, maybe it's getting a coach, a mentor, doing some personal and professional development.
And those aspects,
that's a process.
Yeah, those aspects, like what are they? So we could talk about things like emotional health, relationship health. If you're a business owner, how do you grow your business, right? Mm-hmm. But in order to grow your business, you have to grow yourself. Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of those things play a part, in self-mastery, right? It's not just I've mastered myself and I've got to this end point. It's a continuous journey, right? And it sometimes is very, very difficult because you are stepping outside of a comfort zone that most people like to live in. It feels comfortable to do the same shit every day or to handle situations in the same fashion, right? But once somebody challenges us to think differently, that's uncomfortable. And a lot of times we shut down. Right.
Yeah.
So in that first step we've defined in the self-mastery process as where are you right now?
Right. Where are you right now? So we're talking about the assessment, really, and doing a whole assessment on your life in different aspects of your life that are going to help you understand the who, what, where, and why. That's the first kind of segment of step 1 of what we're calling where are you right now, is getting a handle on like where are you in your life right now, what got you to the place that you're at right now. So if we're talking about who and really getting to the crux of understanding, really, it's a deep question, right? Who am I in the world right now today, especially when you're in the place where you're feeling called to do something else?
Yeah.
What's the first thing people should do when they start getting to that place?
Well, for one thing, I think when people define who, they tend to define who they are as attributes about themselves that are really not who they are. It's more like
it's what they do, right?
Or it's I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I am a father, I am a bank worker, I am a 42-year-old guy that likes to go fishing on the weekends. Like those are things that you do, but it's not necessarily who you are.
Right.
So reaching down deep inside of yourself to discover, what are your passions? What are you an expert in that you could share with the world?
Yeah. And even going further than that, what are your passions? What's your expertise, your knowledge, your background, and how can you use that to do something else with it, right? Because we're presuming that if you're at the place where you are feeling called to do something else, to support, either a movement, to take a stand in the world in a different way than you have been, that's what's actually calling you into your personal growth work. That's what's calling you into an up level and having to make a movement. So how do you actually use your strengths, passions, expertise to create value right? That's what I want to keep that value proposition at the center, because if you're really early on in your self-work and you can really start to shape a conversation within yourself around how do I create value either in a different industry, in a different career, or by going into business for myself, that's a different conversation than just what can I do that's different than what I'm doing now, or I don't like where I'm at right now, I'm not happy with my career, what else can I do? Like that's a wimpy conversation compared to how can I use my strengths, skills, and passions to create value in the marketplace in a different way than I do now, right? And can I do something other than exchanging my time for money, right? And create value for money instead.
Right. And in order to create value for someone else, you first have to find value in yourself.
Hell yeah.
Right? Which becomes who you are.
Right.
Right. So every one of you listening to this is a valuable person. You have valuable ideas, thoughts, interests, passions, goals, desires, all of those things. And so many of us tend to turn them off and think that what the world is giving me is as good as it gets, right? There's this feeling that men are supposed to be a certain way, women are supposed to be a certain way. You get married, you have kids, you build a house, you have a fence, you have dogs, you have cats, you do all this other shit. And that's just how life is, and that's not how it is. That's the picture that's been painted for you.
Yeah.
It's time for you to decide how you're going to paint your own fucking picture.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Be the architect for your life. And I mean, it doesn't the employment setting do that to you though, right? Like you come into the employment setting, maybe fresh out of high school or college, and you've got so many gifts and so much to give. And your employment setting and maybe all the settings you've been in since then is like, we hired you for this. Even if you're good at that, we didn't hire you for that. So put that shit on the back burner. We don't need that part of you here.
Been there, lived it.
Right.
It.
So I get that. So what about the what? You talked about the who. Now, if we were to look at in this assessment process, what, meaning like, where am I at right now? What got me here? And what are my opportunities to grow?
Yeah. I think that the big realization has to be that what got you to where you are right now will not get you to the next point.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. That's
right?
such a,
So that's
important.
the big thing that people miss. You approach every situation the exact same way that you've approached every situation in your life, and you think that you can continue to do that, and what's going to happen is you're going to get the same lackluster result. Right? That's what we all do. Well, this is how I do it, and this is why I do it this way, and this is the result that I've been getting, and that's how I want everybody else to get in line with me, and that's just not how the shit works.
Well, it's like the equivalent of when you go into an organization where there's people that have been working for a long time, and you start to come in with fresh eyes and go, why do you do it that way? And they're like, oh, this is just how we've always done it. And you're like, hey, there's an easier way. And they're like, we're doing it this way because it's how we've always done it. That's what we're comfortable with. But people manifest that exact same scenario in their own life.
Yeah. Right.
And then they want to go either into business or into a new career path, and thinking that whatever got them successful in their past career, endeavor is also going to work in this new career or business endeavor. And I know from personal experience, it is not that way. I thought that I could just like grind my way into success in my business when I first made that leap from working in full-time employment into having my own business and growing my own business. I thought, I'm just going to build this foundation for my business the same way that I did when I went to grad school, and the same way that I did when I went to, when I started my career, was just like grind it out 12-hour days, and I can do that, and that's going to, it's going to work for me, no problem. Yeah. And man, did I like really
because I mean, what happens
messed myself up.
Sure, and I think we can share in that similar feeling, because what happens is that the way we've always done it is where innovation goes to die. Yeah. Right. So write that down. Right. That's a truth bomb for you. The way you've always done it is where innovation goes to die. It's where self-mastery and personal growth and business growth goes to die. And as a healthcare provider, opening a healthcare business, I was really good at treating people. Terrible at things like leadership, terrible at things like emotional health, right? Or emotional intelligence that we hear about all the, that's so rampant everywhere. And until you understand what it is that you need to work on to become who you need to become, you will continue to get the same shit results that you've gotten.
So true. So when you're doing your personal assessment and thinking, what got me here? Really also look at what are the things about the experience that got you to where you're at that you do not want to manifest in your next experience, right? Because if you built your career up to this point in time, you know, with a lot of struggle and grind and frustration, you know, it's easy to get into the mindset that that's just what it takes. And that when you make a pivot, it's just going to be more of that. And I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be that way, but you got to do it with some intention.
Right. Yeah. And you're moving into kind of the where, that third portion of, you know, where are you and how has past experience led you to this point? And you have to think to yourself, what do you love about your past experience and what did you hate? Right? Too many people don't do that assessment, right? They just go, this is how I'm doing it, and I go.
Yeah, hate's a strong word too, but honestly, when we have experiences that we don't prefer, that's how I like to call them, so we don't put judgment around them, but when you have experiences that you don't prefer because you dislike them because they didn't serve you, there's so much to learn from that experience, you know, and about what you don't want to do moving forward. Yeah,
or that fear of looking stupid, right? So everything that I used to do worked, and now it doesn't, and now every time I speak, I feel dumb.
Right. So, which is easy when you're an expert in something, and then you go from being an expert, maybe highly respected and regarded in your field, to doing something new, and everything is new, and everything makes you feel dumb and like a newbie, right? And it's the learning curve of doing something new, and if you can't like just sit in that and be with it, you're really going to struggle and have some limitations come up for you in your thinking. Right.
So what would be on our fourth step of self-recognition and assessment, like, is the why? So the motivation behind why you want to move in the direction or in a direction away from where you are now to this new direction. Why do you want to do that? And I think that what a lot of people, especially in business, they think that there's this grandiose mountaintop outcome. I'm going to open this business. It's going to be super successful. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to move here. I'm going to move there. I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to have that. And what you forget, or what you don't forget, but what you don't realize, is that just because you see people like the Bill Gates, or the Gary Vaynerchuks and those types of people in the world, you see the success. What you don't see is the grind, right? And nobody gets into improving themselves to ultimately improve their business because they want to be a gazillionaire. They have a why that's structured behind who do they want to serve. And why do they want to serve that person? What is the change that they want to see in the world based upon what they're going to offer?
Yeah. I love the conversation about your why, because I mean, I think that could be a podcast episode by itself, because it's so complex. You know, how do you create a why that's compelling enough? Because there's so many, it's a multidimensional question, right? It's about you, it's about your family, it's about what you want to see in the world, like you mentioned earlier. There's so many different aspects to it. And I would say, you know, my why has evolved significantly since I left full-time employment and became a coach. I would say my initial why was just like getting out of the painful experience that I was in my full-time employment setting. That might be the why that initially called me to start dreaming, like, man, what other options are there out there for me? What else could I create for myself, right? Which that usually is the impetus for most people, right? Like, you want to get out of a painful situation. But that does and will evolve over time, and as such it should, as you get closer and closer to like your life purpose, your passions, and how you can utilize your personal and professional skills, experiences to serve others. You know, and I said personal because there's a lot about your personal life experience that, particularly as a coach, you can utilize to support other people. Yeah, it's a story, right? So it's a story that people will identify with, right? Typically, what you've been through or what somebody else will associate, what you've been through, other people will associate with that moment of feeling that same way or having that same situation happen to them. And this is a moment of realization and acceptance, right? So you realize, where am I now? Is that good enough for me, yes or no? Right. And then accepting that answer. Now, acceptance for me is twofold, right? I can accept where I am right now based upon what I've done so far, but I don't have to accept what I do from the next point forward, right? I don't have to accept that that's good enough to move me into that next level of self-mastery. I don't have to accept that. Yeah, one of the great things that came up in our Clubhouse talk this week. So for you podcast listeners who aren't aware, we host a weekly Clubhouse talk at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. And so we engage with our listeners, and from those conversations we have with our listeners, we actually inform what we're going to talk about and record on the podcast. So one of the things that came up as it relates to your why, was this idea of having a responsibility and a duty to change the world and to create something in the world that could support people's healing and growth.
Exactly.
In a way that you've experienced healing and growth, right? So like, how can I keep people from experiencing the suffering that I've experienced, right? As it related to my past relationship, my divorce, my personal health, and in all the ways that I've struggled. If I could give somebody a shortcut to that, why the hell not?
Yeah. And I love the word duty, right?
Yeah.
So we have a duty as a people, as a person, as a whatever binary object you associate yourself with, to spread love, hope, change to other people, right? But we also have a duty to do the same for ourselves. And you cannot adequately make change or help somebody else make change unless you are pouring from a full cup. Like your cup should be so full, you're drinking from the saucer that's underneath it.
Yeah,
right?
it's overflowing, so it doesn't cost you anything to give it away.
Exactly, 1,000%.
Yeah, I love that. So this is, again, we're on step 1 of assessing where you are right now in your growth to personal mastery and self-mastery. And so we talked about the assessment of who, what, where, and why. What about what's next? Then once you make this assessment, then what?
Yeah, so we talked about the realization and appreciation of where you are, right? And a lot of times inside of that realization and appreciation, there's a capped feeling. Like I feel like I've hit a ceiling. And I can speak from my own personal experience here, as I worked for a very large healthcare corporation for almost a decade. And really good at treating my patients, really good at outcomes, getting really good customer service scores, outstanding productivity numbers, all those things, right? Just to be smacked on the back to say, great job, how much more can you do? And I'm like, I'm not your fucking workhorse. Like, what is this? Like, this is not, I felt like at a certain point that I am working for some dude sitting in a leather padded office in a captain's chair eating bonbons and watching Captain Kangaroo.
Yeah, trying to figure out his next
I'm like, what's his next
car he's gonna buy?
Move, right? And so at a certain point you bring ideas to the table and you say, hey, I think this would be great. I think this would be awesome. You have this creative person mindset, which is who I am deep inside. And the issue is that you get stopped at every corner. They're like, oh yeah, it's a great idea. We'll see who can get to implement it. I'm like, no, bitch, I want to implement it, right? And they're like, well, yeah, but we can't take you out of the clinic because you do such a good job with the patients. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I'm stuck in a place where I can't move because you think I'm too good at what I already do? Like, what kind of bullshit is that?
I'm sure there's a lot of people that could relate to that.
Yes, and so you feel capped.
You're too good for your own good.
Right. You feel like somebody has just put a limit on you.
Yeah, they did, because that's exactly what happened.
And it's even though it's an external limit, you feel it internally. You feel like, well, this is all I'm meant to be, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. Is this really all I'm meant to be?
Yeah.
And the answer is no.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, what you've done that got you to this point in time, while it's not what's going to get you to the next place that you want to be, and it's not your next up level, you do have to sit in a space of appreciation that everything that you've done up to this point in time in your life has brought you to this place, and prepared you to be the person that does the next thing.
Yeah, gratitude is what I hear you like throwing
Absolutely,
out there, right?
Yeah,
so,
just having that appreciation for which is part of acceptance too. One of the experience that I had when I was just dreaming, just considering like, do I hire the business coach or not to start my own business, and what would that look like? I kept coming back to this place where it was like, man, how do I dismantle 15 years worth of a career that I've built up to this point in time? And just listen to the words behind that. How do I dismantle? Right? How negative is that?
Such a limiting mindset.
Right. And it wasn't until somebody helped me realize that as long as I keep referring to my next move as a dismantling, I'm never going to be able to actually make it.
Yeah.
That I needed to reframe my thinking into the idea that everything I had done up to this point in time had prepared me for making this next move, and therefore it was not a dismantling at all.
Right.
It was actually 15 years of preparing for this such moment so that I could be the person that I needed to be to make that move.
And so many high performers out there, you always hear them say, change your story, change your life. Right.
So true.
So, and at that point, right, you start to think to yourself, well, maybe this is all I'm made for, right?
Yeah.
If I have to dismantle it, how important was it? But the other side of that coin is that there's so many valuable lessons that you've picked up along the way. So rather than bitch about the situation, sit for a moment in gratitude and think about, okay, what did I learn here? What did I gain here? How do I move from this stepping stone to the next one without leaving a shit stain on the one I just left, which so many people do. You leave a shit-covered footprint on the stone you just left behind. And that's never a good thing. You want to carry in gratitude things that you've learned, and then take things that maybe weren't so positive,
right,
and find ways to change those for the future, because you're going to come across those situations again. And if you handle them the same way you handled them previously, guess what's going to happen? The same fucking outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same level of stuckness just keeps popping back up. You know, you got to get into, this is part of the process of self-mastery, right? Is that you are changing the way that you think about things, because you change your beliefs and then your perception of the world changes, right? And so the next up level for you isn't a dismantling of anything, right? It's a building upon situation. And so you can actually get yourself into the place where you can start dreaming about possibilities for yourself that would be more fulfilling, rather than thinking about all of the things that you will either lose or miss out on if you make a move, if you up level, which is a common mistake that people make, is that they get into this place where they're facing a potential up level, whatever that means for you, right? That could be a promotion in your current career, or that could be, making a much bigger leap in your life. And you start to go, oh, but what if I fill in the blank, right? With limitation that ends up activating your nervous system, right? And making you feel fearful and getting you stuck in a place of indecision. So what are some of the common things that you've heard as a coach with people that are on that ledge, essentially, and they just can't make that jump or take that next step?
We're getting to the conversation of self-limiting beliefs, right? So these are things that happen, right? We have a dream, right? And we feel this dream so passionately, and we finally make a decision to say, what I've done up to this point has been great, but it's not good enough for me moving forward. I have a dream, not to Martin Luther King this, but I have a dream to become, or to do, or to offer, or to support, or to change. And then what happens is we start to express this passion with other people. And then people say to you, why do you want to do that? Why would you do that? Or my personal favorite, which I've heard from my mother, is, oh, I'm going to love you no matter what. Oh, God, no matter what. And what does that mean? No matter what? Like, you don't agree with what I'm going to do and you're going to love me anyway? Or you're going to support me in what I'm going to do? Like, what does that actually mean? So the first limiting beliefs are usually given to you by people who are closest to you. So stay in your dream and do not let people wake you up from it with ideas or thoughts that are going to make you feel like you're not good enough or you're not enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna elaborate on that, because I don't want people to get the perception that what we're saying is to move in total silence and don't ask anybody for help.
True.
This is about the common mistake here that we're referring to is going to the wrong people for help and support. Going to people who've never done the thing that it is that you want to do.
So many experts who've never done shit.
Right. Going to people who've never had to make that type of up level in your life that you're being faced with right now.
Right.
And whether that's in your personal relationships or in your career, in your business, whatever it is, it doesn't take a lot. You go to the wrong person, even though they might be well-intentioned or they might really truly want the best for you. Entrepreneurship is the perfect example, because we'll often go either to parents or to friends or loved ones to say, hey, I have this idea for a business. Can I run it past you? And because they're not in entrepreneurship, they've never built a business, they've never heard of that thing. They in their mind, they just your idea just bumps up against a wall, right? And so what they reflect back at you is everything that you already have in your mind about how this might be hard to do. And then you start telling yourself that this is going to be hard to do. Right. So that would definitely be a common mistake that I see people making at this early stage.
Yeah, stop taking advice from the Harvard MBA or the Harvard entrepreneur teacher who's never owned a fucking business, right? Who's never actually executed on anything, right? You can have great teachers, but make sure these teachers are living in that vision or living in that mission, or who have done it, but more importantly, who have done it and failed at it and then done it again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, speaking of failure, there is a fear of failure at a certain point. You start working and going, and then you realize, oh shit, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I'm not good enough.
Right.
Maybe I don't know enough. And the answer is no, you don't know enough. And you're never going to, because it's a constant journey to make change, right? But the idea is that just because you fail doesn't mean you're a failure.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the definition of failure really has to be redefined. Failure is not even attempting, not even attempting to figure it out, not even attempting to find someone who could help you. Even if it's as much as asking questions, not even attempting to find a coach or a mentor who could support you. That's the real failure,
right?
Versus making a real informed attempt, maybe not landing where your expectation was, because that's really what failure is, right? Your reality doesn't match your expectation for whatever it was that you wanted to happen, but you could still be 3 steps further ahead than you were before you started, right? Maybe your expectation was that this attempt was going to get you 10 steps ahead. Okay, it only got you 3 steps ahead. That's not a failure.
Right.
Right.
It's like the bicycle thing, right? And I use this a lot. I used it yesterday on our Clubhouse, and you don't learn to ride a bike by riding a bike. You learn to ride a bike by busting your ass.
Right, a few times.
Scuffing your elbows, knees, bonking your head, all of that. That's how you learn. Yeah. There is science out there, and yes, I'm going medical on you guys right now. There's science out there that suggests that failure produces actually changed synapses in the brain. It means it physically changes the way your brain works, and you learn by failing. You don't learn when you do everything right the first time. Yeah. It is frustrating when you fail, right? I look at my 9-year-old son all the time. He's like, "No, I can't do it." I'm like, "Dude, it's the first time you've tried it. What are you talking about?" "Well, I'm just not very good." I'm like, "Well, duh, nobody's good the first time you try something." It takes a ton of doing shit the wrong way before you figure out what to do, right? That doesn't work. Okay. Yeah. And then now you pivot and you go to the next thing. You try the next piece, right? You find people, like you mentioned, coaches, mentors, that you can talk to that can help you turn decades into days, hours into minutes.
Absolutely.
Right? Months into weeks, whatever it may be. Talk to people who've already made the mistakes. Learn what those are and allow yourself the space to fail, pivot, and move forward.
Yeah. I would say also, common mistake, and this is totally related, and this is probably intertwined with every mistake that I see people make, and even that I've made, right? It's just an unrealistic expectation, right? The expectation that I should have gotten this perfectly right, or the first time that I did it, this should have turned out the way that I wanted it to the very first time. This should have been different, right? Even the idea that there is a right and a wrong, right?
Yep.
Is problematic, because the moment that you start labeling and placing that judgment on what it is that you're doing and how you're going about it, you're going to start becoming and activating that overly critical voice in your mind, and you're going to start comparing yourself, which is another big mistake.
Yeah, and expectations have usually 2 outcomes, and neither one of them are great.
Yeah.
I expect to get to this point, and because you set that goal and that expectation and you get to that point, now it's lackluster. And you see this all the time. You order this new thing in the mail and you're so excited and you get it, and then within 2 days you fucking forgot about it, right? So if you have an expectation, you're setting an expectation, and you meet that goal, it will have lackluster types of feelings around it, right? And then if the expectation is so high and you never meet it, then you feel just as lost as if you did meet it. So stop creating expectations, realistic or unrealistic, right? Find out the direction you need to move in and start putting the steps in place to reach goals. And don't worry about the expected time frames. Humans are terrible predictors of how much time it's going to take to do anything.
Totally. Yeah.
I can sit here and say, I'm going to have all my video courses recorded for you guys next week. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's another common mistake. Yeah, is feeling like I should be further ahead.
Yeah, stop comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah, comparison. This is what happens. I mean, you get into this place in your mindset, and you start to really reinforce the limiting beliefs. You know, you have one experience, which is essentially not a failure, but an expectation mismatch, which you label as a failure. And then you start doing things like comparing yourself to other people in your industry who are further along, right? You start doing things like, you know, telling yourself you should be further ahead than where you really are, you know, which I think is also based in this idea of people not understanding how much it actually takes to lift a business off the ground.
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's obnoxious.
It's obnoxiously long time in terms of the time period, but also the financial and the time and energetic investment of resources, right?
Sure.
And so when you go into that with an unrealistic expectation and you think, oh yeah, 6 months, I'm going to get this off the ground, or like a lot of the advertisements out there that are like, you know, do this program and you can be a millionaire in 90 days.
All right.
You know, guys, you know, if you get yourself into that place and then on that 91st day, your bank account doesn't reflect your expectation, you know, you could start going down a dark road just mentally. You know, going, man, I invested into this program and I didn't get my expected results, you know. So again, it's everything in business building is going to be, you know, shifting your mindset. That's why we say mindset is 80%, maybe even more than 80% in the beginning, especially.
Right.
I would say it's even as much as 90% and 10% strategy. You know, and so we go around and we chase all the strategies. That's another common mistake, right? We'll talk about that some more in another podcast episode, but we're chasing strategies, but we're not doing the work on the mindset and we're not moving forward in that self-mastery.
And then when you get punched in the gut, the mindset's not there to support you in the next steps you need to take. So
to recover.
Absolutely. Big thing. So let's answer our regular question, shall we?
Yeah.
So our episode ending question of what was your biggest aha moment when it came to this first step in personal mastery? What did you realize about yourself when you look at these who, where, why types of things? Like, what was that assessment like for you? What's that aha moment?
Okay, I'm not even gonna lie. I've had a lot of aha moments, right?
Give me one.
I'm consistently in my work, but if I really go back, like time travel back in time to the place where I was still in step one, like assessing where I'm at, right? Then it's like I'm sitting in my office back where I used to work, and I'm telling myself, how do I just get paid for being myself? Right? And I'm having that conversation with like a colleague of mine, and we were laughing. And I'll tell you why we were laughing was because for us, and for me in particular, that question seemed absolutely absurd. That I could actually do something where I got paid just to like literally be my authentic self. And now it's like, well, that's actually what I do.
I know, because I have to pay you to be my friend. So,
so yes, like the process of dreaming, right? And kind of like asking yourself questions that seem silly or seem absurd or seem like whatever the hell they seem like to you in that moment, right? They're only silly at that time because you're not there yet. Right. But it doesn't mean that you can't be there one day.
True.
Know?
Yeah,
so that was a big aha moment for me, was like, don't limit myself in my dreams or like what I'm actually going to ask as far as like possibilities for me when I'm considering my next up level. Like nothing is too crazy or absurd.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks.
I love it.
What about you?
Oh gosh, big aha moment. So this is what I realize is the way people perceive you, right? So when I said that I was no longer going to treat, I was no longer going to provide the physical rehabilitation services that I used to provide because I wanted to concentrate on developing a business. I wanted to develop this healthcare business and now eventually this coaching business for other healthcare business owners. And the big thing that I got a lot was, are you sure? But you're so good at it. You're so good at treating people. Like you're so good.
You can't be good at anything else.
You can't. I mean, holy shit. Like, why would you want to stop doing that? You're so good at it. I can't tell you how many people said that to me. And I'm like, so your perception of how good I was at one thing means I may not be as good at another thing.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think to myself, well, yeah, I am good at it. And even now, these days, I have a few clients that I work with, just kind of the VIP thing, if you will, not to sound bougie as hell, but that I work with. And I get that little taste because I do enjoy a little piece of that, right? But at the end of the day, I'm like, I could never do this full time anymore. I could never do this full time anymore. And it's because I love so much helping other people run really amazing healthcare businesses because they need it, right? A lot of us can associate healthcare practices that we've been to and had horrible experiences, waited for so long, to be seen for 5 minutes. And I wanted to change that dynamic, right? There's tons of really good providers out there, but there's also tons of really shitty business owners out there.
Yeah.
Right? But that aha moment for me was like, hey, just because I'm good at one thing doesn't mean I can't be good at another one. And what do I need to learn to become who I need to become? To not show anybody else that I'm good at it, but to make a change for a group of people that need a change.
Yeah, and make the pivot.
That's it.
That's awesome.
That's it.
I like that.
Amazing. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. This was our, what's this, our fourth recording already?
This is episode 3.
Yeah. So this was our step 1 in our self-mastery process. We're going to lead you guys in the coming weeks for the follow-up steps. So thanks again for joining both myself and Oriana for the Edgy Entrepreneur podcast.
Thanks so much for joining us. We will hopefully have you soon. Bye-bye.
Stay edgy, bitches.
Stay edgy, motherfuckers.